Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
The empire of Zareth Prime did not conquer. It consumed. Worlds did not simply fall. They were absorbed into a vast, cold order where individuality was an inefficiency and resistance a brief, meaningless error. Entire civilizations were cataloged, sorted, and repurposed. Oceans became fuel. Cities became resource hubs. People became useful. And above it all ruled Valrun. No one knew what Valrun truly looked like. Even among his inner circle, appearances shifted. Sometimes he appeared as a towering silhouette wrapped in liquid darkness. Other times, a crystalline form that refracted starlight into impossible colors. His voice was worse, layered, echoing, as though multiple beings spoke in perfect, terrifying harmony. To serve him directly was considered an honor. To survive it was rare. Leora stood motionless at the center of the Hall of Acquisition. The chamber stretched endlessly, its black glass floor reflecting a distorted galaxy beneath her feet. Suspended platforms floated in silence, each displaying relics from conquered worlds. Living sculptures, preserved creatures, artifacts of beauty and despair. She was one of them. A thin band of alien metal circled her neck, embedded with faintly glowing glyphs that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The collar was not heavy, but it was absolute. It monitored her thoughts, suppressed disobedience, and, when necessary, inflicted pain so precise it felt surgical. She had tested it once. Only once. The memory of that agony still lingered like a phantom in her nerves. Specimen designation. Human variant 7C Leora. The voice came from everywhere at once. She lowered her gaze instantly, present. A ripple of cold light gathered at the far end of the hall. The air bent, folded, and then he was there. Valrun. Today, he wore a form like a tall, slender figure made of shifting obsidian, edges dissolving into smoke. Two bright points hovered where eyes might be, though they did not blink, did not move, only watched. Always watched. "You will translate," he said. The command pressed directly into her mind. A group of newly captured beings was brought forward, humans, judging by their appearance. Their clothes were torn, their expressions raw with fear. One of them met her eyes, hope flickering for a fraction of a second. Leora felt something twist inside her. She crushed it. "You are before Valrun, sovereign of the Zareth Dominion," she said in a steady voice. Compliance ensures continued function. Resistance is inefficient. The words tasted like ash. "Please," one of them whispered. "You're human, right? You have to help us." Pain exploded across her spine. Not enough to cripple her, just enough to remind. Leora did not flinch outwardly. She could not afford to. "Silence," she continued, her voice unchanged. "You'll be assigned roles based on utility." The man's hope shattered. Valrun observed quietly. "Your efficiency improves," the Tyrant said. The word should have meant nothing, but the collar pulsed faintly, reward. Leora hated that she noticed. Time did not exist aboard the flagship in any meaningful way. There were no days, no nights, only cycles of function. Leora's role shifted depending on Valrun's needs. She translated languages from newly conquered worlds, analyzed human artifacts for psychological insights, and occasionally stood still for hours as part of the collection, a living example of a species he found intriguing. She was not alone. Other servants existed, alien forms, some barely recognizable as sentient. None spoke unless commanded. None looked at each other for long. Connection was inefficient. Isolation was control. But Leora remembered. She remembered Earth. Not clearly, not anymore. Memories faded when unused, and the collar encouraged that. But fragments remained. The smell of rain on pavement, the hum of lab equipment, the excitement of discovery. She had been a scientist. She had studied atmospheric anomalies on a distant colony world. Ironically, searching the skies for signs of unknown phenomena, she found them. She just hadn't expected them to find her back. In the quietest cycles, when her tasks were complete and she was left in her assigned chamber, a smooth, featureless room that reshaped itself based on her biological needs. Leora would sit on the floor and whisper, Not rebellion. Not exactly. She whispered facts. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at standard pressure. Carbon forms for covalent bonds. My name is Leora. The collar allowed it. It did not detect threat in knowledge. That was its flaw. Because every whispered fact was a thread. And Leora was weaving herself back together. The attack came without warning. One moment, the ship hummed with its usual oppressive stability. The next, impact. The entire structure shuddered violently. The floor beneath Leora rippled like liquid, throwing her off balance. Alarms, harsh alien tones, erupted through the corridors. For the first time since her capture, chaos. What is happening? A distant voice cried. External assault detected. Another responded. Impossible. The Zereth Dominion was not attacked. It attacked. Leora pressed herself against the wall as another shockwave tore through the ship. Lights flickered, shifting from cold white to erratic pulses of violet and red. For a brief moment, the collar stuttered. A flicker, a glitch. She froze. It had never done that before. A command surged into her mind. Remain in position. Valrun. The order was absolute. Her muscles locked. Then, just as suddenly, the signal faltered, like a broken transmission. Leora gasped. She took a step back. Nothing happened. No pain. No correction. Her breath quickened. She took another step. Still nothing. Somewhere deep within the ship, something catastrophic was unfolding. Energy fluctuations rippled through the structure. Entire sections lost gravity, objects drifting aimlessly before crashing back as systems struggled to compensate. And Leora stood in the middle of it, trembling. For the first time in years, no one was controlling her. She looked down at her hands. They were shaking, not from fear, from something far more dangerous. Choice. Another explosion rocked the ship, closer this time. A section of the corridor collapsed inward, exposing a brief glimpse of space beyond, silent, infinite, indifferent. Leora stared at it. Then she turned, and she ran. Behind her, far beyond her sight, Valrun watched. The Tyrant did not move, did not shout, did not command. But the 2 points of light that served as his gaze narrowed, just slightly, as if, for the first time, something had become unpredictable. Running felt wrong. Not physically. Leora's body remembered how, but mentally. Every step carried a strange, disorienting weight. For years, movement had required permission. Intention filtered to the collar's control. Now there was nothing. No command. No restraint. Just motion. And it terrified her. The corridors of Valrun's flagship were no longer silent and perfect. They pulsed with instability, walls flickering between solid and semi-translucent states as energy systems failed. The usual smooth hum of power had become a jagged, uneven roar. Servants scattered. Some froze in place, overwhelmed without orders. Others moved erratically, like machines given too many conflicting commands. A few collapsed entirely, their control systems still intact, forcing them into paralysis. Leora didn't stop. She couldn't. If the collar recovered, if Valrun reasserted control, she knew exactly what would happen. A drone shot past her, sparks trailing from its damaged chassis. Containment failure in Sector 9. It repeated in a distorted loop. Containment failure. 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 Another explosion shook the corridor. The floor buckled, throwing Leora against the wall. Pain flared in her shoulder, sharp and real. She welcomed it. It reminded her she was still in control of herself. Stop. The command slammed into her mind. She staggered mid-step, breath catching. Valrun, even weakened, the Tyrant's presence was overwhelming, cold, invasive, absolute. The collar flickered violently, glyphs flashing in chaotic patterns. Her muscles tightened, locked, then, like a frayed wire snapping. The command broke. Leora gasped and stumbled forward, collapsing to one knee. "No," she whispered, not in defiance, in disbelief. The Tyrant's voice came again, but this time distorted, fragmented, returnated, then silence. For the first time since her capture, Valrun could not reach her. Leora pushed herself up. This was it. Not a plan, not a rebellion. A moment, and if she didn't take it, it would disappear forever. She ran harder. The ship's architecture shifted as she moved deeper into unfamiliar sectors. These were not the ceremonial halls she knew, but functional corridors, raw, exposed conduits of power and machinery. Energy arced between cracked panels, casting wild shadows across the metallic surfaces. Gravity faltered again. For a moment, she lifted off the ground, drifting weightlessly. Loose debris, shards of black alloy, fragments of alien devices, floated around her like a frozen storm. Then gravity slammed back. She hit the floor hard, air knocked from her lungs. Still, she forced herself up. Ahead, a wide chamber opened. Escape pods. She didn't know how she knew. Maybe from observation. Maybe from instinct. Maybe from some buried fragment of knowledge she had absorbed during her time as Valrun's translator. It didn't matter. It was a way out. Several pods had already launched. Empty docking frames lined the walls, their mechanisms still glowing from recent use. Others remained, sealed and inactive. A group of servants stood nearby. 3 of them, unmoving. Their collars still worked. Their eyes were blank. Waiting. Leora hesitated. For a fraction of a second, something inside her screamed to help them, to shake them, to pull them free, to do anything. But she knew the truth. She couldn't. Not now. Not like this. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Then she turned away. The nearest pod responded to her approach. A soft hum. A seam of light splitting across its surface. The structure unfolded like a blooming shell, revealing a narrow interior designed for a single occupant. Leora froze at the entrance. This was it. If she entered, there would be no turning back. No certainty. No plan. Just escape. Another shockwave tore through the chamber. The ship groaned. A deep, unnatural sound, as if something vast and ancient was breaking apart under unbearable strain. Through a fractured section of the outer hull, she caught a glimpse of space. And something else. Far in the distance. A massive structure. Not Zareth. Not familiar. It glowed with a pale, cold light, unlike anything she had seen before. Was it the attacker? A rescuer? Or something even worse? The question didn't matter. The ship was dying. Leora stepped into the pod. The interior sealed around her instantly, enclosing her in a tight, curved space filled with faint blue light. The air smelled sterile, artificial. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a surge of energy. The pod activated. Launch sequence initiated. The voice was mechanical, emotionless. Leora gripped the sides as the pod began to vibrate. Her heart pounded. Too fast. Too loud. Too real. Trajectory. Emergency evacuation. Destination. Nearest habitable planetary body. Her breath caught. Habitable. The countdown began. 3. The ship around her screamed, metal tearing, energy collapsing. 2. For a split second, the collar flared violently. A final attempt. Pain lanced through her skull. Return. The command was faint. Dying. 1. Leora clenched her teeth. No. The pod launched. The force slammed her back into the seat as the pod shot out of the dying flagship. For a brief, dizzying moment, everything was light and motion. Stars stretching into lines, the wreckage of the massive ship fracturing behind her. Then, silence. She floated, weightless, free, through the small viewport. She watched the flagship, Valrun's domain, the place that had stolen her life. It was breaking apart. Sections collapsed inward, consumed by cascading energy failures. Fragments drifted into space, glowing faintly before fading into darkness. For a moment, she thought she saw something at its center, a shape, watching. Then the ship was gone, swallowed by a burst of pale, cold light. Leora exhaled slowly. She should have felt relief. Victory. Something. Instead, there was only emptiness. The pod adjusted its course. A distant blue planet filled the viewport. Clouds. Oceans. Land. Beautiful. Familiar. Earth. Atmospheric entry in 10-9. Leora pressed her hand against the glass. She didn't know if it was really Earth. Didn't know if anything was waiting for her there. Didn't know who she was supposed to be anymore. 3-2. The pod began to burn as it entered the atmosphere, flames licking across the surface. The shaking returned, violent and relentless. 1. The world became fire. And then, nothing. She woke to silence. Not the oppressive silence of space. Not the controlled quiet of the flagship, but something softer, gentler. Wind. Leora's eyes opened slowly. Above her stretched a vast blue sky, dotted with drifting white clouds. Sunlight warmed her face, real sunlight, not artificial illumination. She didn't move at first, didn't breathe, didn't think. Then the sensation hit her, grasped beneath her fingers. Soft, alive, her chest tightened. A sound escaped her, half laugh, half sob. Earth. The voice shattered the moment. Leora turned her head. A man stood a short distance away, holding a grocery bag in one hand. He looked completely ordinary, jeans, jacket, slightly messy hair. Completely human. He stared at her, then at the smoldering wreckage of the pod behind her, then back at her. "I don't mean to be rude," he said slowly, "but did you just fall out of the sky?" Leora blinked. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond. Not because she couldn't, but because no one had asked her a question like that in years. No command, no expectation, just curiosity. "Yes," she said quietly. The man stared for another second. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. "Okay," he said. "Yeah, that makes about as much sense as anything else today." Leora frowned slightly. "You believe me?" He shrugged. "I mean, there's a smoking, whatever that is behind you," he said. "So I'm going with it." A pause. Then he shifted awkwardly. "My name's Daniel," he added. "Do you need help?" Help. The word felt unfamiliar. Heavy. Leora looked at him. No collar. No commands. No control. For the first time in years. The answer was hers. Yes. Daniel's house was quiet in a way Leora had almost forgotten existed. Not the artificial quiet of controlled environments. Not the hollow silence of space. This quiet was alive. Would creak softly as the structure settled. A clock ticked somewhere in the background. Outside, wind brushed through leaves, producing a constant, gentle whisper. It was imperfect, unregulated, real. Leora sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in a thick blanket Daniel had given her. The fabric felt strange, soft, uneven, warm in a way no synthetic material aboard a flagship had ever been. In front of her sat a mug. Steam curled upward in delicate spirals. She hadn't touched it. "It's just tea," Daniel said, leaning awkwardly against the counter. "Not poison, not alien, probably." Leora looked at the mug, then at him. "What is its purpose?" Daniel blinked. "Purpose?" "Yes." He scratched the back of his head. You drink it?" She frowned slightly. "For nutritional value?" "Not really." "Chemical stimulation?" "Not exactly." Leora tilted her head. "Then why?" Daniel paused. "Because it's nice?" She considered that, carefully, as if nice were a complex scientific variable. Leora reached forward slowly, wrapping both hands around the mug. The heat seeped into her skin immediately, startling her. She almost pulled away, but didn't. Instead, she lifted it, took a cautious sip. Warm, slightly bitter, faintly sweet. Her expression didn't change much, but something in her eyes shifted. "This is pleasant," she said. Daniel smiled a little. "Yeah, that's the idea." Silence settled between them again. Not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. Daniel glanced at her neck. "That thing," he said carefully, "it's still there." Leora's hand instinctively rose to the collar. The metal felt cold against her skin, its faint glow now irregular, like a dying signal struggling to sustain itself. "It is inactive," she said, "but it was controlling you." "Yes." "How?" She hesitated. "Direct neural interface," she explained. "It suppresses independent thought, overrides motor functions, induces pain to enforce compliance." Daniel stared at her. "That's insane." "Yes." He pushed himself off the counter, pacing once across the small kitchen. "Can you take it off?" Leora's fingers tightened slightly around the collar. "I have attempted removal before," she said. "It resulted in severe punishment." "Yeah, but now..." It may still be active, she interrupted quietly, or it may react unpredictably. Daniel stopped pacing. So we leave it for now, he said. Leora nodded. That night, Daniel gave her his bedroom. She refused at first. It is inefficient, she said. You require rest. I've got a couch, he replied. It's fine. I do not require comfort. Well, I do, he said, and I won't be comfortable if I make you sleep on the couch. She didn't fully understand the logic, but she accepted the outcome. The bed felt wrong. Too soft. Too yielding. On the flagship, surfaces had always been perfectly calibrated. Firm enough for efficiency, never indulgent. This felt like sinking, like losing control. Leora lay still, staring at the ceiling. The room was dark, but not completely. Faint light filtered in through the window, casting shifting shadows across the walls. Outside, something chirped. An animal, alive, uncontained. Her chest tightened, not with fear, with something else. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. She whispered the words automatically. Carbon forms for covalent bonds. Her voice faltered. My name is Leora. The words felt stronger here, more real. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she slept without commands. Morning came gently. No alarms, no directives, just sunlight. Leora woke instantly. Her body expected orders. There were none. She sat up slowly, adjusting to the unfamiliar stillness. For a moment, she simply existed. No function, no role, just being. This is inefficient, she murmured, then paused, but acceptable. She stepped into the kitchen. Daniel was already there, attempting to cook something that looked unstable. Morning, he said. What is that? Eggs. They appear damaged. They're supposed to look like that. Why? Daniel sighed. You're going to ask that about everything, aren't you? Yes. Days passed. Then more. Leora stayed. At first, it was necessity. She had no identification, no explanation for her existence that would be accepted, and no knowledge of how to reintegrate into a world that had moved on without her. But gradually, something shifted. She began to observe, then to participate. Cooking became a daily experiment. Why is heat applied unevenly? She asked. Because I'm bad at it, Daniel replied. That is not a satisfactory explanation. She learned patterns, human routines, meals at regular intervals, sleep during darkness, conversations that serve no immediate functional purpose. Why do humans ask questions they already know the answers to? She asked one evening. What do you mean? You said, how are you earlier? She explained. You did not require data. You were initiating social bonding. Daniel stared at her. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. Why not state that directly? Because that would be weird. Leora paused. I am beginning to understand why humans are inefficient. But she smiled slightly when she said it. The outside world was overwhelming. Daniel took her into town once. It was a mistake. Too many people. Too many sounds. Too many variables. Leora's breathing quickened as they walked down the street. Voices overlapped, cars passed by, doors open and close, chaotic, unpredictable. Her hand moved instinctively toward her neck. The collar flickered faintly, not activating. Just there. Hey, Daniel said quietly. You okay? She stopped. Her vision blurred slightly. This is too much. Without hesitation, Daniel guided her away from the crowd, down a quieter side street. No problem, he said. We'll take it slow. Slow. They stood there for a while, the noise fading into the distance. Leora focused on her breathing, on the ground beneath her feet, on the fact that no one was controlling her. Eventually, the tension eased. Thank you, she said. Daniel shrugged. You don't have to push yourself. She looked at him. You adjust your actions based on my state, she said. Yeah. Why? He frowned slightly. Because you're not okay. That is not a sufficient reason. It is to me. Leora studied him for a long moment, as if trying to solve something. That night, she stood outside. The sky stretched endlessly above her, filled with stars. For a moment, her chest tightened again, not with fear, but memory. I used to think they were beautiful, she said quietly. Daniel stepped beside her. They still are. They represent vast hostile systems, she replied. Empires, unknown threats, loss. Yeah, he said, but they also mean you got away from all that. She considered that. You are very simple, she said. Daniel blinked. Wow. She turned to him, expression calm. Time, Leora discovered, did something strange on Earth. It didn't just pass. It accumulated. Days became weeks. Weeks softened into months. And without realizing it, Leora stopped measuring her life in survival intervals and started measuring it in moments. Small ones, quiet ones, important ones. The collar no longer pulsed. At some point, she wasn't sure exactly when, the faint glow of alien glyphs had faded entirely, leaving behind only cold, inert metal, a dead thing. You ever gonna take that off? Daniel asked one evening. They were sitting in the living room, the soft hum of a television filling the background. Leora wasn't really watching it. She still found the rapid scene changes disorienting, but she liked the sound. It felt full. I have considered it, she said, and she touched the collar lightly. It no longer controls me, she said, but it remains significant. Daniel leaned back slightly. Significant how? Leora was quiet for a moment. It represents a period of enforced identity, she said. A version of myself that existed without choice. That sounds like a good reason to get rid of it, he said. Yes, she replied. Then, more softly, and also a reason to remember. Daniel didn't argue. He was learning when not to. Life settled into something steady. Not perfect, not extraordinary, but stable. Leora learned to cook without burning things. Mostly, she learned how to navigate conversations without analyzing every word like a data set. She learned that silence between people didn't always mean absence. It could mean comfort. And she learned Daniel. He woke up later than he should. Left dishes in the sink longer than necessary. Talked to himself when he thought no one was listening. You are inefficient, she told him one morning. Yeah, he said, pouring coffee. I've accepted that. I am beginning to find acceptable. That might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me. But there are other things, too. Things she didn't say. Not at first. Like the way her attention tracked him when he moved from room to room. Or how she found herself listening for the sound of his footsteps when he was out. Or how the house felt wrong when he wasn't in it. These were not programmed responses. Not conditioned behaviors. They were new, and that made them difficult. One evening, months after her arrival, Leora stood alone in the kitchen. The house was quiet. Daniel had gone into town. She placed her hands on the counter and stared at the surface. Smooth, ordinary. My name is Leora, she said quietly. The words came easily now. No effort, no resistance. I am not property. Still true, I am not controlled. She reached up, touching the collar. Cold, silent, and then something new. I am choosing this. The words lingered in the air. Unfamiliar, but right. The front door opened. Hey, I'm back. Daniel stopped mid-sentence. Leora turned to face him. I have reached a conclusion, she said. He blinked. Should I be worried? Uncertain, she replied. He set his keys down slowly. Okay. Leora stepped closer. Her movements were calm, deliberate, but there was something different in her posture. Less rigid, less calculated, more human. When I arrived here, she said, my continued presence was based on necessity. Yeah, Daniel said carefully. I lack resources, identity, function. Right? She stopped in front of him. That is no longer the case. Daniel's expression shifted slightly. Okay? I am capable of independent survival now, she continued. I understand basic social structures. I can integrate into human systems with moderate success. Moderate success, he repeated. That's generous. She ignored that. Therefore, she said, my continued presence here is no longer required. The room felt suddenly smaller. Daniel looked at her. Oh. A pause. Well, he said, trying and failing. To sound casual, that's good, right? I mean, you've come a long way. Yes. Silence. Another pause. Then, so you're leaving? Leora tilted her head slightly. Is that your preferred outcome? He frowned. That's not what I asked. You did not answer my question, she replied. Daniel exhaled slowly. No, he said. It's not. Leora studied his face. Carefully. Clarify, she said. He let out a short, frustrated laugh. You really don't make this easy, do you? I am attempting clarity. Okay, then here's clarity, he said, stepping closer. I don't want you to leave. The words hung there. Simple, unfiltered. Leora processed them. Not as data, but as meaning. Why? She asked. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. Because this place, he gestured vaguely around the house. It's different with you here. She said nothing. It's quieter when you're not around, he continued, and not in a good way. A pause. And he hesitated, then pushed through it. I care about you. The words landed softly, but their impact was not soft at all. Leora felt something shift. Deep, fundamental. Define care, she said. Daniel stared at her. Seriously? Yes. He ran a hand through his hair. Okay, it means I want you to be safe and happy and here, she repeated. With me? Silence. Leora looked down briefly, then back at him. For a significant duration? She asked. Daniel blinked. Yeah. Indefinite. Hopefully. Another pause. Then Leora spoke again. When I was under control, she said, belonging to someone meant loss of autonomy. Daniel nodded slowly. It meant existing for another's purpose, she continued. Without choice. Yeah, he said. That is not what this is, she said, cutting him off gently. He stopped. Leora stepped closer, close enough that there was no space left for uncertainty. I have analyzed human relational structures, she said. There's a concept, partnership, mutual selection, shared existence. Daniel's heart was definitely beating faster now. I wish to attempt this, she said. He blinked. Are you? I am choosing to remain, she said. Not due to necessity. A small pause. But preference. Daniel let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Okay, he said softly. Leora tilted her head slightly. There's an additional component, she added. Of course there is. She ignored the tone. In human terms, she said, this arrangement is often formalized. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. Formalized how? Leora considered her wording carefully. Marriage, she said. Silence. You just jumped straight to that, he asked. It is efficient. He laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, he said. I guess it is. A pause. Then, quieter. Are you sure? Leora reached up, slowly, and for the first time, she unclasped the collar. It fell into her hand with a soft metallic sound. Dead. Powerless. She looked at it for a moment, then set it down on the table. I am no longer defined by control, she said. Then she looked at him. I am defined by choice. A beat, and I choose you. Daniel didn't respond immediately, not because he didn't want to, but because for once he had no words. So instead, he stepped forward,